My debut children's book's called Who Let the Gods Out. And I wrote the second one before the first one was published. And the first one, they're all excited about it. And I was really lucky. I got like Waterstone's Book of the Month. They were all super excited. They're like, oh, this is great. It's the first 4-part series. Let's have the second one. Come on, Maz, let's. And I'm like, I got nothing.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Conversation with Nadine Matheson. As always, I hope that you're well and I hope that you've had a good week. My week has been good. It's been busy, but also, if you're an author, if you're actually not just an author, if you are a creative person, last week saw revelations about AI and Meta. And basically, in a nutshell, we all found out that Meta had been using stolen copies of our books in order to train their AI. There's an article in the Atlantic magazine, and I'm going to put the link in the show notes that you should read. And if you're an author and you haven't done this yet, there's a link to LibGen's database, and it's a database of books that have basically been stolen in order to train AI. And I wasn't thinking my books would be there. I just didn't. But I put my name in, and lo and behold, all of my books, including foreign editions of my books, are in this database. And Meta have used these stolen books in order to train their AI. So if you haven't already done so, this is my request to you. Not only just to authors, but all creatives and everyone who just loves and enjoys the work that we produce. So get in touch with your MPs, get in touch with your unions, your writers guilds, your artist guilds. Just make your voices heard that this is not acceptable. So that is my request for everyone out there, because it really isn't acceptable. If you want our work, you need to pay us for it. It's as simple as that. You don't steal it. So yeah, that was a big revelation, because I think we're aware that this stuff happens, but there's been so much noise from creatives and industries about not wanting to loosen the protection on copyright, making sure that there are clauses in our contracts to ensure that our works are not used to train AI. But this has still happened. So yeah, it's been quite infuriating. So it was quite a week. Anyway, I'm going to get on with the show because this is such a fun episode. I'm in conversation with best-selling author and award-selling author of children's books, Who Let the God Out, Oh My Gods, and her... I'm trying to say it because we had difficulty trying to work out the best way to say adult fiction without making it sound like top shelf. But Maz Evan also writes books for grown-ups. I'll just put it that way. Over My Dead Body and her new novel, Headteacher. And in today's conversation, Maz Evans and I talk about how we're writers running a business, the struggles of transitioning genres, and the power of saying no in publishing. And usually, as these interviews are pre-recorded, if there's a disturbance, because, life gets in the way. So, for example, I forgot that the postman was coming to do a collection. So usually I will just edit out the interruption, but I decided to keep it in because you will hear Maz Evans being hilariously entertaining whilst I go and deal with the postman. And I just thought I'm just going to leave it in because it's just fun and it just sums her up. So, as always, sit back or go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Maz Evans, welcome to The Conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Very welcome. You're welcome. I'm welcome. Oh, we're all welcome. See, I can't even talk. The reason why I can't talk is I'm just so excited to talk to you. Right, but I'm going to start off a really sensible question. Maz, how would you describe your career?
Stupid. Stupid. It's totally stupid. But also like mediocre and stupid. That's the thing. It's either like...
Would you like to explain?
And I'm wildly successful. So I am I'm an author broadly, but I write for children and I write for adults. So I started as a children's author. So I have published now 15, I think, children's books. But 2 years ago, I published my debut. I always hesitate to say adult book because it kind of has other comment, very 50 shades.
What? like doing my notes and doing my research last night. Literally, I've written here, switching genres, moving from middle grade to adult fiction, and in brackets I've written adult. It just sounds so wrong, and I've had to write publishing, but then adult publishing just sounds even
worse.
Top shelf. It doesn't sound any better.
So when I say adult, I mean as distinct from my career as a children's author, as opposed to the sideline in erotica. That is not going well, by the way. But that's for another podcast. Yes, I wrote my debut adult sort of comedy crime novel, Over My Dead Body, and I've got the next one coming out at the end of February, That'll Teacher. Plug. And I am absolutely bum deep in the third one. I'm 2 weeks off deadline, so it is a miracle I'm wearing clothes, to be honest. The house is a disaster. There's a reason for the top knot, Nadine. There's a reason.
It looks very like fashionably, stylishly done.
I mean, it's just awful. I mean, there's just nothing's getting done until this novel is delivered in 2 weeks.
I always call like that week before I need to deliver that book. I just call it the Uber Eats and red wine week, because that's what I just survive on Uber Eats and Deliveroo. I'm not cooking anything. I don't comb my hair. So it's either in a headscarf or just in a bun. It's just yeah.
Can I just say I hold you and this podcast in such high esteem? I showered for this because I'm that worried about the stank kind of transmitting.
I feel so honoured.
So I literally shower and a bra. Like neither of those things have happened this week. Everything my children have eaten has come out of brown plastic this week. There's not been, the oven's not been on, no cutlery has been used. It's just been anything I can shove in the microwave.
But I think every writer has a deadline, can relate.
Oh yeah,
that's just what happens.
And I think when you get to this point in life, I realise what I can't do. You know, I have no aspirations to be Superwoman anymore. I don't try and do it all, have it all. If I just do one thing, then frankly, I'm winning at life. So I need to deliver the book. Then I will do other stuff like clean, cook, raise my children, speak to a friend, hygiene. But that's coming after March the 3rd. Like nothing is happening.
What was it like? You know, that first moment, that break, you know, probably going back to writing your first book and your first experience of having that deadline week. What was that like for you? Because I think for me, it was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, it's like having a baby. Like no one tells you, and it's probably a good thing. Yeah. You're just going to find out for yourself. I think the first book's a weird one, isn't it? Because you don't have a deadline in quite that way. Because as the adage goes, you've got your whole life to write your first book. Yeah. You know, it's the second one that's the kicker, because then you really do have a deadline. So, and I really did second book syndrome hard. I mean, second everything's difficult, isn't it? Second album, second book, second husband. They're all very awkward. And I struggles with all three. And my second children's book, and I think my publishers were going out of their minds. So my debut children's book's called Who Let the Gods Out. And I wrote the second one before the first one was published. And the first one, they're all excited about it. And I was really lucky. It got like Waterstone's Book of the Month. And we're all super excited. They're like, oh, this is great. It's the first 4-part series. Let's have the second one. Come on, Maz, let's. And I'm like, I got nothing. Absolutely nothing. My second book was 3 complete novels before it was right. I wrote 3 novels and scrapped them before I got it right. But
did you really?
Oh, yeah, it was. And they are tearing their hair out. They're going, who is this clown? You know, we've signed her on a 4-book deal and she can't write books. What are we doing? But I always say this when I do talks, because I learned more from failing at that book, I think, than I from succeeding is a very subjective term, but succeeding at the others, because it did teach me the most important lesson I've learned as a writer, I think, which is that it does happen. You know, it does happen. And we don't really know how it happens, does it? It's like it's making a diamond, it's time and pressure, and somehow it happens. And that one has laid down a sort of, you know, a muscle memory that goes, however badly it is going, it's never as bad as that book. It does happen. You've just got to turn up, glue your bum to the chair and push on through, you know, and you will get there. And that was probably the most useful lesson as an author I think I could have learned very early on.
I felt like that this week. Because, well, for the last 2 weeks, I've been writing, doing everyone knows, like, I'm a planner. So I've been doing the plans for the next 2 years.
Planner.
I love team planner's the way to go. But I've been doing the plan for the Henley books, which is fine because I know because the world already exists. So
Yeah.
I'm just slotting in a new
No,
investigation
that's
to
hard.
the world.
That's hard. That's hard because you
It's
try
still,
not to write the same book over and over again.
yeah, which is that. So that pressure comes when I'm actually writing it because I could always say, and I'm always going to have an interview scene. There's always going to be an arrest. There's always going to be someone running away. We got to try and catch them. So there's all these tropes that are always going to be there. But the planning is probably like there's a little less pressure off it. But planning a standalone, I've started and scrapped it and started and scrapped it about 4 or 5 times until I think Monday, I was like, you just need to sit there.
Yeah.
You're writing, you just need to sit there and you're writing a murder. That's why the time's up. It's a murder mystery. Stop jazzing it up with all these different titles or subgenres. It's a murder. That's what it is about.
Kill someone dead.
Yeah. But that's literally and then maybe kill another person. I thought, I had to kill a second person. And I was like,
I've got an idea. Make it look like someone else did it. You could do that. Why does that give everyone else all the good ideas?
Exactly. But sometimes it is about having that really strong word with yourself and then putting yourself in the chair and making and then something happens. I can't even describe it because I finished it last night and I was like, all that grief and hassle and stress and
100%.
There's my plan.
There it is. And there's just no getting around it. It's like exercise. And I think physical exercise is very analogous with writing because there are no shortcuts, there are no excuses. You've just got to do it. Like there's no way around it. And when people say, I just go off on a long walk when I'm stuck. No, if I go on a long walk, I'm thinking about the traitors. I'm not thinking about the book. If I have a hot bath, if I ride a hot bath, I'm thinking about Ryan Reynolds. I'm not thinking about my book. There's the only time I think about my book is when I'm sitting down working on the book. So stop it, Evans. Stop making all these excuses, these nonsense things. You can think about Ryan Reynolds later, and you will, but sit down and work and
write your book.
Yeah, and that's the only answer, isn't it? When people say, I always sort of, when you're talking to sort of aspirant authors, which I really do enjoy, I was an academic earlier in my career as a creative writing lecturer at university, and I'm really I miss that. I love teaching, I love mentoring, and that side of it. So when aspirant authors want to talk to me about it, I always say, so what should most important piece of advice? I always go, write a book. Because it's amazing how many people have got a marketing plan, they've worked out the merchandise, they've got the film rights sorted. In the book. I
have a friend, and years ago, we were talking because I was writing. I think I wasn't traditionally published. I'd self-published. I said, yeah, I'm gonna ask you about that. But I can't remember now if I was due to self-publish the book or it was at some point in the process. And she said, I'm writing too. I'm like, cool, because we've always spoken about writing. But she, and on one hand, I think it's a good thing it's like that whole manifesting thing. But she already had the book cover.
Brilliant.
She already booked the party, the launch. She booked the venue for the launch party.
I love this woman. She's an icon.
She's amazing. I do love her. But she's done all these things, but they never wrote the book. So I said, on one hand, it's the, you do it, it's like fill the dreams, build it and it will come. So the man, so I don't have an issue with that because I've done mock book covers and things like that. And, this is what I want to do. But you still need to write.
You build it.
You have to build it.
Mixer on to do it. I mean, it's the physical exercise. It's like buying really nice gym kit from Sweaty Betty, isn't it? And then thinking you're going to lose 7 pounds. It's the same thing. It's like you do.
I'm always disappointed when I put on my Sweaty Betty stuff and I'm like, it hasn't done what it says on the tin.
It hasn't done. Why don't I look like the girl in the picture just by wearing it? Because that's the dream I was sold. And I absolutely agree. I think the manifesting thing is really, really interesting actually because I self-published originally. So when I first wrote about the Davy Children's book, I wrote it basically in response to the absolute tedium of raising my children. And I love you kids, you're great, but God, you were dull when you were babies. This is the number one lie about motherhood. Oh, it's so fulfilling. No, it's not. Not at times. It's really boring. Yes, of course, it's wonderful. I'd kill and die for them. But, I'd done by this point 2 degrees. I'd had quite a sort of vibrant journalism career. Picking up Weetabix off my own, left boob is not fulfilling for me.
Not the way to go.
Not the way to go. So, and I had 3 kids under 4 at one point. But wow. Yeah, no, I figured out what was causing it and we stopped that. So that was fine. But, I was so bored that I wrote this book. And I think as probably everyone does, I wrote my first book and I went, oh, well, that's brilliant. Wow. This is the book publishing didn't know it needed. Publishing didn't agree, Nadine. Publishing didn't.
Oh, did you send it out straight away?
Oh yeah. I couldn't get arrested with this book. I mean, nobody wanted to know. Absolutely no one wanted to know. So it's a tediously long story I won't bore you with, but I basically went into a massive hissy fit for about 5 years and didn't write and just went into a fit of pique and kind of, retired to take the vapors in a sort of Greta Garbo-esque way. And then 5 years later, I was a university lecturer by this point. I was working with these brilliant young people and their creativity. And I thought, oh, come on, Maz, like, have a bash. And I'm a big advocate for creative entrepreneurialism because I think it's really empowering and I think it's really exciting, and there are more and more opportunities for us to, and we should always make a business of our writing. We are not writers, we're not floating around in scarves. This is our business. We are business people running a business, and I think doing it yourself is really empowering. So I self-published To Let the Gods Out because I was going around schools doing creative writing workshops. I had a captive market. But I had this vision, and this is going to sound so woo-woo, and I'm not a very woo-woo person, but I had this absolute belief I was going to be on the stage at the Hay Festival. So not like, Daventry, book group. No, Maz, let's go to the top. Let's go to the Hay Fest. Let's go to the Glastonbury of our world. Let's not keep it realistic in any way, shape, or form. Go big or go home, Evans. So, but I had this absolute belief that I was gonna do it. And do you know where I launched that book? On stage at the Hay Festival. And
did you really?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Because I'm really irritatingly persistent, I think, was the main thing. I'd love to say it was talent, and no, I wore them down. It was basically, for God's sake, give her a slot or we take out a restraining order, which is.
I think that's amazing, because this is just from my own experience let me open the door very, very quickly.
Oh, no, we promised you any minute. I'm worried about the safety.
I'll be back.
So I'll entertain everybody in the meantime. Let's have a little bit of Greensleeves holding music. Do, 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 do. You are number 3 in the queue. Do, 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 do. You are number 5 in the queue. How did that happen? I was number 3 just a minute ago. Do, 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 do. It's all right, Nadine, I've got this covered. We've got you are number 2 in the queue.
I forgot. I had one of these post office collections.
Oh, man, you don't miss that. Those are like
no.
Don't miss that.
What was I saying? I was saying
that hay and manifesting, and you were saying
that's it. Because I think I say from experience of being a student on creative writing courses and going along to how many festivals and events, you can always spot the person who's, whether it's the student or someone just an audience member, that they're looking for the magic bullet in order to write a book.
Yeah.
And I'm always sitting there thinking, I do not have the answer. Like, I can tell you my experience. I can tell you what I feel like you should do, but there's no magic bullet that's going to get you from sitting at your desk, writing a book, and then appearing at the Hay.
100%.
There just isn't.
There isn't. And there isn't. And the thing is that, of all the mythologies about our industry, and there are many, it's not just talent and hard work. Sadly, there are many talented, hardworking writers who don't get a break for whatever reason. Some just timing, some systemic, some luck, some, just wrong place, wrong time. There's all of that. It's not meritocratic. It's not fair. It's, that there are, I love publishing, I'm very proud to be part of it, but this kind of idea, like you say, that there is some magic formula. Well, if there was, we'd all be doing it, wouldn't we?
Exactly.
I mean, we'd all be doing it, and it is a combination of all those things of luck and timing and talent and hard work, and your book landing on the right. So Over My Dead Body, for instance, my first adult book. So that was originally, I was a screenwriter back along, and it was originally a screenplay, and it did quite well for me, so it opened a few doors, and I always thought make a good novel, and it wasn't, I think, as a lot of writers, until the pandemic came along that I sort of had time to do it. So translated it into a novel, which I have to say I loved. I was really pleased with it, and I'm very hard on my work. I don't toot my own horn. I always think everything I write is pretty rubbish. And there are plenty of people who would agree with me.
I do.
Plenty of people who agree.
I always think everything's rubbish. And my agent, even the last thing I sent him, he was like, it's good. And I think the look on my face is like, why are you surprised? I said, literally, I'm just like, really? Because I'm reading it and I can't see what you see.
My editor's always, when I send that, when you send the first draft email, don't you go, I know it's rubbish. Like, I know it's rubbish, but I will fix it. I promise I will fix it.
I have like a whole legal disclaimer.
Exactly. I've got a pro forma now that I just stick on a first draft email. It goes, I'll make him. I promise I'll fix it. I promise I'll fix it. But so I wrote over my dead body and I went back and forth with my agent, what have you. And we went out on submission. And again, I was quite hopeful for that book, which again, cynical, jaded 10 years in the industry. I tend not to be terribly optimistic these days. I was quite hopeful for that one. Crickets, Nadine. Absolute crickets. And well, I hope you don't know the pain of being on submission for weeks and just rejection after rejection after rejection. And I was kind of, and this sounds arrogant. I don't mean it arrogantly, but I thought, I know this book is good. Like, I know this book is quite good. And I know there's an audience for it, more to the point. But again, right, so it landed on the desk of Toby Jones, who is my editor at Headline. And I will actually refrain from saying all the rude things I normally say about, I won't refrain for long, but he absolutely loved it. And so one person who loved it, acquired it, has published it with so much passion and enthusiasm. And, I get nominated for the Gold Dagger, like the book that nobody wanted, and it's kind of, and also, awards are a nonsense. They're just, I'm sure they pick names out of a hat, frankly. But it's, it went from a book that literally publishing, wanted to burn, to getting, getting nominated for one of the biggest awards. Go figure. And I'm not saying that's because I'm great. I'm saying that's the complete nonsense of our industry. It makes no sense. But when you find that person who loves what you do and really gets you, that is worth so much to me, because publishing with passion is everything when you've got publishers who are really behind you.
I'm thinking about, you say publishing makes no sense. And there are a lot of things you look at and you're like, it just makes no sense whatsoever. I don't understand it. So what I've decided I'm allowing myself to do when I have those moments, because I usually just try and follow Mel Robbins and just let them. I just let them.
I just let them this week. That's so weird. Let them. Oh my God, it's so normal, isn't it? Let them.
But what I've decided yesterday was I'm going to allow myself one moment of pettiness a week. I feel like you should be allowed one moment of... Well, I did it twice this week. It's supposed to be once. But I did it this morning. It was literally before we started recording. I saw something on Instagram and I was like, oh, I was like, really? And I was like, no, let them. But I said, you're allowed your moment of pettiness. And I think it's good. I think it's nice to embrace it and let it go, to have that vent.
It is just like publishing is well-meaning sometimes. It's not always well-meaning, but it's how it can get the right things so very wrong sometimes. And I think the big thing about art of publishing that drives me mad is the absolute disingenuousness around money. And there was a thing that did the rounds on the socials a few weeks ago. You might have seen it. It's a quote that's along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, it's one thing to become an author. It's another thing to remain an author. And the fact is, money is at the heart of that. And we know that anything that involves money is going to disproportionately disadvantage already marginalized people. So we know that. We know that when money is on the table, it's going to disproportionately affect the people who should be having the seat at the table already. So the fact that nobody will talk about it and talk about, sustainable, careers, nobody will talk about the fact that you cannot work for £500 advance for a year and be expected to give up your job and write a book and tour. It's impossible. And
that's crazy.
So many people from entering or remaining. So you can have all the schemes in the world that you want with all the well-meaning rhetoric around them. But unless you're going to goddamn pony up and give people money to support them through the early part of their career, we won't get those voices that we need around the table.
And the thing is, you're as an author, you're always battling with perception. Because the perception is that, someone, it could be a member of your family, it could be a friend, someone you went to school with donkey years ago. They'll walk into the supermarket, any supermarket, they'll see your book on the shelves. And the assumption is because
they'll see yours, but they won't see mine. Mocking me, but they'll see yours. I take the point.
They'll see your book, anyone's book. But they'll see that. And then the natural leap is, because I'm sure I've done it in the past, your natural leap is, oh, wow, I'm seeing your book while I'm out buying my peas. So you must be doing really, really well financially. When reality is, it's like criminal barristers and criminal solicitors. The assumption is you're a fat cat lawyer when you're not, because for a lot of them, I can't remember what the recent number is, but they could be earning like most writers earning less than 10 grand
Oh
a
yeah,
year.
7.
You can't
7.
survive. You can't. Yeah, it's 7 grand. You can't survive on £7,000 per year.
That average includes the Osmonds and the Rowlings and the Lee Charles of this world. Yeah, that average has been pulled up by the people who are earning millions. So
yeah,
that the real figure, I suspect, is a lot less than that.
I think it's a lot less.
Yeah, you can't live off that. You
can't live off it. You can't. And this is why when you see these articles, when I always talk about the law, but you see these articles saying, you'd earn more, and literally being a barista in Starbucks than you would being a trainee solicitor or a pupil, or being an author. People are like, no, that can't be true. It is 100% true.
It is 100% true. And therefore, all the inclusion and diversity, which is so overdue and so necessary and such a moral imperative in this industry that every voice should be reflected and amplified, none of that is going to happen effectively until we pay people properly. The reason that publishing has been the preserve of the white middle classes, high card-carrying member of both, is because they're the only people who can afford to do it. There are other systemic issues at play, and it'd be naive to suggest that publishing's immune from those. But unless people are being paid, they can't do it. And 7 grand is the average, man, that average. I mean, some people are earning like 400 quid or 25 quid from doing this. And and I know, writing these books is hard, man. It demands everything of your time, brain, life.
I always equate it, going back to that final week before your deadline. I always equate it to doing a trial, and that feeling whether it could be a trial that's been 2-3 days or a trial that's been 3 months. But when you get to the end, you are so exhausted, but it's not a physical, it's a mental exhaustion. Yeah. And the same feeling I have when I've completed a trial is the same feeling I have when I've completed a book. Because it's all you just fully engaged, but it's just a constant, because there's no respite from it. So you go to sleep, you're still thinking about it when you're in bed, you wake up, you're thinking about it, and it's just continuous. So when you do start, it's normally when you get sick, because your body
always post deadline flu is real. It's so all consuming, and it sounds sort of, as my mom's very mamby-pamby, sounds mamby-pamby, but it is exhausting, because you're thinking about it at some level. A program is running the whole time, like say when you're awake, when you're asleep, and because you're doing it under time pressure, so you are having to come up with ideas. And the idea that a book is one idea is just laughable. A book is 50,000 different ideas. Everyone's got to be earning their place on the page. Every word has got to earn its place on the page, and there's 100,000 of those for starters. So that's no mean feat, and it is absolutely exhausting. And the thing I find quite difficult is because I'm sort of doing the two. I mean, I say the two sides of the same career. Really, my career as a children's author is almost completely distinct from my career as an adult author. Yeah. Two things. So I've got to deliver this book 2 weeks on Monday, not even 2 weeks, 2 weeks on Monday. And then I'm back into deadline for my next middle grade in May. And then I've got another project due in July. And I've got another project due in October. And I just delivered a book in January. This is the longest sentence I've spoken, frankly. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I mean, I was going to ask you, Maz, how you keep going. But I wanted to ask you, when you're doing all these talks and you're talking to writers, aspiring writers, what do you say to them to keep them going through that rejection? Because nothing can really prepare you for it. I said back in the day, the rejection was your literal manuscript landing back on your doorstep.
Yeah.
Now I don't know what's worse, actually. No, I think that was worse. I think that's worse than the emails, because when it comes back and it's got your own handwriting on the envelope, and you don't even need to open it to know what's happened.
That's so true.
So I think the envelope was worse.
I think it probably was, because you just, like you say, you just look at that thing on your doormat and you step straight over it, don't you? Yeah. You're like, I don't need to disappoint myself just yet.
I remember picking it up and just throwing it back on the bottom step.
And that could be a tenner down pronto print as well.
No, but then I did used to think, well, I can, as long as I haven't marked it up, I'll just take it out and put it in another envelope and send it to you.
Yeah, that's it. Oh,
that was the only thing.
Rejection's a weird thing, and feedback is, I think how you take feedback is one of the most important things about being a writer. And I found this when I was mentoring. So when I was on the other side of it, it was really interesting to see how people took feedback or didn't. And obviously it's all subjective. You know, I just said, you know, of the 12 people we sent over my dead body out to, 11 didn't like it and 1 did. So, you know, it's entirely subjective. But the skill is to take what's useful out of it. So if you had 10 rejections and they're all saying a similar thing, like the characters aren't coming to life, or the dialogue doesn't come off the page, or the plot isn't believable, something, listen to that, because that is a really useful note. You know, if one person just says something random like, you know, oh, I don't really like books about, you know, penguins, then that's not necessarily helpful, because you'll find your penguin people. But when you've got a lot of people saying the same thing, that's a note. When you've got one random person, you know, like on Amazon saying, well, the packaging was broken, you don't have to pay too much attention to that. Let that into your self-worth. So I think it's take what is useful out of the rejections, because, you know, I know that agents and editors really, you know, the nice ones that I've worked with, they really agonize over this stuff, and they really do try to give useful feedback, you know, where they think it is helpful. So listen to that. You don't have to absorb it all if you wildly disagree with it, but you know, no one's saying it to do you down or have a go at you. So take what's useful out of it, because maybe that is what's stopping you from getting away. So yeah, try and filter what is useful in the rejections and apply it back to your work.
Yeah, when I was mentoring, and I had one writer, and we were working on a manuscript, and she sent it out to agents. I told her not to, but she sent it out to agents. But I can't remember how many she sent it out to. I was like, "Well," I said, "No." I said, "It wasn't ready. It wasn't ready yet." But it's that thing which I understand. It's like you in your head, you finished it, and because you finished it, you have a book, and you tell yourself it's the best. You know, we've all done it. It's the best book ever. Like,
absolutely. But the greatest lie is the one we tell ourselves, aren't they?
It's the greatest lie. It's the best lie. It's a warm lie. It's not even a lie. It's the truth. That's when you know it. But she sent it out. Let's say she sent it out to 5 agents. 4 of them, thanks, but no thanks. 1 of them came back, and it was a no, but they gave her feedback. Nice. But so she sent me the email, and in my head, I'm thinking, you've got feedback. You know how valuable it is to get feedback from an agent. They told you no, but she was so wedded to her manuscript and how good she believes it is, but also the fact that then wedded to the rejection, the overall rejection. She couldn't see, I call like the beauty in the feedback. So I had to sit there and say to her, do you know how rare it is for an agent to sit there, one who's told you no, to give you feedback? I said, listen to the feedback, think about it, incorporate it, and take it from there. And eventually she did, and then she got an agent. The same one who rejected her then said, I said, send it back to them. And she really signed.
It's funny to say that, because my agent, the divine Veronique Baxter, who I adore, I would have been with Veronique for 10 years next month.
Wow.
And when I first sent her Who Let the Gods Out, she rejected it back in, God, it would have been 2009. She rejected it. And I was crushed, because I was already represented by David Hyams as a scriptwriter. So honestly, and very arrogantly, I thought it was a shoo-in. You know, I just thought it was some rubber
You were doing it, the same agencies. Like, why wouldn't your mate next door say yes?
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously, you know, you just got to look at the first page and go, oh, this girl. Oh,
she knows what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing. Strange, it turns out publishing's a bit more intricate than that. Who knew? But in my stupid, youthful arrogance, I assumed it was a bit of a done deal. So Veronique rejected it, and that was the most crushing rejection I got because of that. Because I thought, wow, you must have really hated it, like not to take me on with the agency. And I remembered this email as like this, and Veronique would never be, you know, unkind, but this sort of visceral takedown of the book, saying how awful it was. And I mean, that's why I went into a huff for 5 years and didn't write, because I was like, well, I'm just rubbish, aren't I? Because look, do you know what I did? I read that email back a few weeks ago, because I said
it wasn't that bad.
It was lovely. It was really encouraging. So you are a great writer. You've got a great voice. You know, the plot is not of me. As she said, I'm so close to this, but she said, it's just not quite there yet. You're not quite ready, but keep going because you're great.
That's a great email.
It was a great. Not in 2009. It wasn't, Nadine. It was.
This is what I'm saying. Though, you can be so wedded. All you're seeing is the big R. You're just seeing R and rejection and failure, and you're not seeing what's actually being said.
All lovely, and encouraging and helpful feedback that I got. So it is that. I think it is definitely taking what's useful, and you have to try and step away from it. And when I was mentoring, And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, lads, but there was definitely a gender split between women taking feedback largely and men taking feedback. And there were some men who took feedback brilliantly. There was only ever one woman who did not take the feedback well. But I did run into, not problems, because it's freely given and take my advice or leave it. But one man had written a middle grade children's book that was 150,000 words long, right? So middle grade, 150,000 words long. So, I mean, that's punching up, isn't it?
Like, on the practical side, like, what is the ideal length for middle grade?
Well, these days they want about 40,000, but so once you go over 50,000, and there are exceptions, of course, but really 50,000 is very top end. Whoever goes like 60,000, which is very, very top end.
Right.
But somewhere sort of 40 to 50, probably. I'll be able to push up over 50 if it's the higher end of the age bracket. So this book is 3 times longer than the... Now, this book came to me, I've got to be honest, he was brilliant. I mean, he was a sensational writer. The story was beautiful. The world was beautiful. And he sent it to me. I said, I'm going to be honest, let's call him Ted. Ted, you are a fantastic writer. I haven't got much to give you. I mean, you're brilliant. Just one thing, and this is an easy fix, your book's too long. But hey, great news. You've got 3 books here. Just divide it up into 3. You've got a series to pitch. You haven't got a bit, and middle grade loves a series. So I said, just, put buttons on each act, basically, fire it off, you're away. No, he said. I said, eh? He said, no. He said, I'm not going to do that. I said, I'm going to ask you why. And he said, no. He said, I would rather this book never be published than ever break it up into 3 parts, than ever change a word of what I've written. But remember, this guy's paid for this opportunity. So basically he's paying for me to tell him he's great. And he was great. And I did tell him he was great. He got his money's worth. But I'm just saying, as an industry thing, you're not going to get 150,000 word, but there is no way. So, of course, then you get the classic, well, J.K. Rowling did it. It's like different.
It's a little bit different.
Literally, that's its own industry.
If you compare the Philosopher's Stone, book 1 to the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, very different. And, say what you will, but she's earned her publishing chops by that point. She could have published a shopping list at that point, couldn't she?
Basically.
But he just wouldn't do it. And he went, no. And you know what, Nadine, to this day, strangely, still not published. Still not published.
I don't want to go into a gender thing, but I gave feedback because I was asked to. And it's like, I'm entering a competition. Do you mind reading my piece? Give me feedback on piece. And it's the line, I'd really value your opinion. And I'm busy. Yeah. I have I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I'm not busy. I'm busy. I have things to do. But I said, yes, I'll give you feedback because I think it's important to, pay it back. And I read it. I'm like, okay, I can see the story there. It's a good story, but there are things that are wrong. They're just wrong. There's things that are wrong. And I'm saying, look, if you do X, Y, and Z, perfect, send it off. I can't remember if I got a thank you, but what I did see, Maz, was a message on a post on social media. Yeah, well, I got the feedback and I wasn't that impressed with it and I'm going to send it off anyway. I was like, bloody.
You can be petty about that. You can be petty about that. As long as
I was just like, really? I thought, okay, this is my petty South London side. I was like, okay, this is when you're going to find out now. I'm like, you're going to find out.
Karma's on the express train.
Yeah, he didn't win the competition. He didn't win.
It's really odd. I mean, I'm kind of like, it's the sort of, does my bum look big in this principle? Like, if I don't want the answer, I don't ask the question. Because I don't look at my bank account, I don't get on the scales. Like, if there is information I don't want to have, I don't ask it. But if I'm seeking from a professional their opinion, then take it, because there's no point. And a lot of these things can be sort of looking for validation. And I find that very interesting.
I understand the looking for validation because, when you send, like when I send my book out to my editor or my agent, all I need to know is that they think it's good, that they like it, because then it means to me that it's validation for me. I'm a good writer and I can tell a story. I don't give a monkey's.
Uber Eats. It'll pay for Uber Eats.
It would justify me living in my headscarf for a gweek and just giving Uber Eats and delivery all my money. Like, it would justify all that. So you need that validation. So when I see I always say I'll get the email from my editor, and as long as and she said the last one, she goes, oh, I love it. I don't care what's in the editing notes after that. I'm like, I don't care if you tell me I've got to rewrite the whole second half of the book, but you've told me that you love it, and that's all I need to know. And then I'm good to.
I'm so needy. I'm so needy.
No, but I'm good to roll with the edits after that.
Just tell me you love me. Tell me you love me. Give me a pat on the head. Give me a sticker and tell me you like it, please. I mean, still to this day, like I say, I've been in the biz 10 years, and still now, when I get an email from my agent, so I pitched her some ideas for some new things this week, and I got an email back saying, I am so excited about these ideas. And one of the things I love about Veronique, she gives it to me straight. I need it, but I do need someone who'll give it to me straight. So because if I send her something she doesn't like, she'll go, no. No, Maz, what you're on? No, we've been having too many hot bars thinking about Ryan Reynolds. too much red wine, not enough Deliveroo, Maz. Go back and think about it again. So when she says she really likes it, I'm literally like a meerkat. I'm like, oh, she likes me. She likes me. She likes my ideas.
I think this is
wonderful at this point in my life. How fragile my kind of self-worth is. Not wanting.
I mean, I've said it loads of times on this interest. I do continuously find it interesting how, if you've done other things before being a writer, so have you been, a teacher, lawyer, anything, you can be so confident in yourself in that career. But we then move into this and we turn into, I don't know, like a 14-year-old schoolgirl waiting to find out if Michael in the 5th year fancies us. You just get so like weak and pathetic about it. And you're like, I'm a grown woman. Like, I'm standing.
I'm an old woman.
You're an old woman. But I could do my job standing on my head.
Yeah, I will literally check my Wi-Fi connection. Like in that kind of, are you sure this phone's working when you're waiting for Michael to phone the landline? Is my Wi-Fi working? There's something wrong with my email. I seem to only be getting the Viagra emails. Where's the... But I think part of that is, so you obviously have an extra... I will say this, and I would much rather interview you. You have far more interesting things to say than I do. But I don't know how you do like the most high-powered job and you do this. Like I just do this.
Well...
For this.
Luckily, I don't have to do it anymore. I just teach them now, but it's still a lot.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how you do it. It is, and it is. But the thing is, in that career, so I came from journalism and then academia, and you come from law. In those jobs, I think it's fair to say, if you do a good job and you're good at what you do, you will progress through that career.
Yeah.
If you are good at it, there's an obvious structure, there's reward, there's promotion. The problem with this career is you can do all that, do it really well, and have a great book and it all goes well, and then your next one tanks and you're out. And that's I think why we're so mad, is because the precariousness of this profession is awful. You can sell hundreds of thousands of books, you can win all the awards, you could do, but you have a bad run and you'll get kicked out. And that's what's so terrifying, is we're all scared of that, aren't we? That we're only as good as our last book. And it's a terrifying way to be.
Listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. In one of my WhatsApp group, I'm in a WhatsApp group with a bunch of writers. It's a safe place. And I posted in there like a mock job description of a writer. And I'm going to read it out to you. And I said, no one would apply. I said, no one would apply for the job of a writer. We are looking for a writer. No minimum salary, no fixed hours, flexibility of remote work. You can choose your own projects. No guarantee of promotion. No guarantee of payment once project concluded. No guarantee of career progression. Your work may be used to train AI. Like if you saw that advertised, you would not apply for the job.
I always think on the similar thing, I was like Dragon's Den. Dragon's Den, where they have to go pitch a thing and the dragons invest. You think about it with like your publishing pitch. So I've made this thing. I've spent several years on it. I've got proven sales record and I really want you to invest in my thing. And they go, yeah, we're going to give you 6%. You go, that's a terrible deal.
You wouldn't take it.
You're keeping 94% of the thing that I made. Like, you never take it. You'd be like, I'm going to go to the back. No, sorry, dragons, I'm out. It's a terrible.
You would walk away. You'd take your dignity with you. You'd walk away.
You really would. And you go, no, Deborah Meaden. No.
No, James.
No, Joe Wicks. He's on it now. Don't know why. No, that's no good. I'm not giving you 94% of my business for the work that it takes. But there's this, and I rant about this a lot. There's the this toxic gratitude curve in publishing. That drives me mad. So the notion that is always dangled around is that, well, if you don't want to do it, like there's a queue out the door of people that will. No, can I just stop this now, Nadine? No. There is not a queue of people out the door who can do what you and I and every published author can do. There just isn't. Queue of people who want to do it. A lot of people who want to do it. But people who can actually write and deliver consistently quality stuff on horrible deadlines with everything else that is going on in life and keep coming up with this. No, there aren't many of us who can do that. Thank God, because we're all slightly unhinged and deranged. But there aren't that many people who do. So stop it, publishing. Stop with this nonsense that if you don't want to do it, we can just replace you. Because you can't, love. You just can't. So there's always that fear that we're going to, if we don't do it, somebody else will. Yeah. And I simply don't think that is right or correct. And the fact that, there's a sort of sense, I don't know quite if it's the same in the adult world, in the children's world, this sort of publisher loyalty that you will stay with the publisher who will absolutely flick you off. If you don't do the numbers, you'll go, and yet you're supposed to stay with them no matter what. Toxic gratitude. If it was a relationship, you'd be calling a helpline. It's very, 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 very
well, weird. If it's a relationship, it will be controlling and coercive behaviour.
Exactly. It's kind of this, you will do this, you'll do it on these terms. And don't get me wrong, I love publishing. I work with very brilliant publishers and I'm surrounded by a really good team of people, but I see it with other people and there's kind of just keeping people afraid. And it's like you say, if it were a relationship, it would be coercive, controlling behaviour. And it's, again, we're not going to do the things we need to do as an industry to make sure everyone is here and everyone is represented if we have this toxic gratitude thing.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Like it makes you listening to you or anyone listening to us right now will be like, well, let me just shut down my Word document. Let me go and do something else. Because why would I put myself through it? So I need to ask you.
Why do we? Exactly.
Yeah, so why do you? What keeps you going?
Because I love it. Because I absolutely love it. I love it. I've got Stockholm syndrome with my career. I love it. But there are, in amongst all that, and I think possibly I've focused a little too much on the negative side of it. But just say publishers and still available for work. I love it. I love the act of creation. I love the fact that there are people who I have and will never meet to whom my words have elicited some sort of response, that they have laughed or it has made them think, or they thought it's the worst book in creation, whatever it is, something I have written has touched somebody else, another human on this planet. Obviously, when you get the lovely feedback, it's amazing. So, and I've better be careful. I think I've upset publishers. I've been rude about people I've mentored. Let's have a go at reviewers now, shall we? If we're going to bury our career.
You might as well tick all the boxes, Maz. Tick all of them.
I don't do things by halves, Nadine. Reviews are lovely, but it is ultimately the opinion of one person, and and we know that those things are highly subjective. So for me, sort of democratic reviews like Amazon, seeing what the weight of people think, that does mean a little bit more to me, to be honest, because it's like the TripAdvisor thing, isn't it? If one person says that the mashed potatoes are lumpy, then perhaps they're being fussy. If everybody says it, then there's obviously a problem with the mashed potatoes. It's the same thing with reviews. If kind of broadly everyone's going, I really enjoyed this, and that's great, and a few people go, no, I'd rather poke my eyes out with spoons than ever read another word. This wasn't right. Then you kind of go, all right, love, all right, Ted. I appreciate we've got history, but there's no need.
I love how your fictional person is called Ted. Mine is Barbara. It was Maureen for a while. Now it's Barbara this week. Barbara at number 7. Barbara at number 72.
I know exactly what Barbara's like as well. I can already see Barbara. In fact, you know what? On given days, Nadine, I probably am Barbara. That's another wrong day. I can be peak Barbara. But it's when people. When readers get in touch, so Over My Dead Body is about a dead woman who has to solve her own murder. And and I have this sort of ridiculous view of the afterlife that it's basically like Fleet Service Station, which, talk about manifesting, weirdly, is where I was when I got the phone call saying I got the book deal. I was having a wee. I was literally
You know,
having
you
a wee.
said you're not really woo-woo. I think you are completely.
I wasn't witchy. I
You're
was
very
having a wee
witchy.
services, and the woman in the cubicle next to me must have wondered what the heck was going on in there, because I went, yes!
I think that's a question I need to ask people now. Where were you when you got the call? Because I got the call. I was in an Uber going to my friend's house for dinner, and it was a Friday night. And I just was not expecting the call, because the book only went out on submission like on the Tuesday. The Friday after, so I'm in the Uber going to my friend's house, and then Ollie, my agent, calls me. Did he call me or text me? No, I think he called me. And yeah, he called me because he was on the train, and he's like, we got an offer. And I went, okay. And I was like, okay. And he told me the offer, and I don't know, my face must have just completely changed, because the cab driver starts looking at me in the rear view, and I'm just like, okay, like very just flat. Okay, all right, okay, speak to you later. End the call. And then I go into like a panic, like I'm trying to call people, like I need to call my friends, I need to tell someone. Yeah, she's not picking up. Call my brother, he's not picking up. I nearly called the one in Japan, but the time difference, there's no point. I'll be waking him up, so I don't call him. I get to the point where I'm thinking I might have to call an ex, because I just need to talk to somebody. And then I need to tell somebody. And then I'm like, I'm not going to call my friend because I'm going to see her. And then we stop at the traffic lights, and the cab driver's like, is everything all right? Because he must have just thought I just found out someone died or something. Yeah, because that was like the expression of my face. He's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm fine. I was not fine.
Was the first person that learned about your book deal your Uber driver? Because that would just
sometimes it was my Uber driver, because he was just looking at me like I just had the worst news ever, because I'm chatty, so sometimes I'm very chatty to them, and other times I'm just like, I don't want to talk to nobody. But that I must have been it's Friday night, I'm going to my friend's house, we're going to drink and chat and eat food, so I must have been chatting away to him, and then I've just acted like, you know, I've lost my house, I've lost the family, I've lost everything.
No, it's a terrible phone call.
It's a terrible phone call.
Well, having a wee at Fleet Services was definitely that was the best wee I ever had. But it's, you know, and it's those moments. We're all dopamine addicts, and those highs absolutely offset the lows, don't they? When you get the wins, and I think you know, again, I'm long enough in the tooth, both in terms of how, you know, my age and my time in the business, that you do start to treat those two imposters the same, success and failure. You know it's a circle, it goes round and round. Like I said about the book not going well, you know, I know there comes a time, I get that, and I just visualize that time when this thing falls into place. And, you know, I hope it happens. It's the same when you're in a low patch, and we all have them. You know the wheel will turn around. But I think the key thing is, and this is something I'm really kind of holding on to at the moment, is the biggest success is staying in the game. You know, you don't know which book will take off, or if they will, or what will get a film deal, or what won't, or what might suddenly become an overnight splash, or just the sheer weight of your output will suddenly give you a comfortable living, because you've got so many books out there. You don't perhaps need one earning you a fortune, you need a load earning you something, but none of that can happen if you don't stay in the game. And I think it sounds like a perhaps sort of rather mediocre ambition, but I realise now that is so much of the battle won, because I have watched, particularly in children's where I have far more experience. I think about, so Who Let the Gods Out was published in 2017. I can only name 3 other debut authors that year who are still publishing.
Really?
I've watched so many people get the big book deal and all the hype and all the fuss, and of course it doesn't sell, and they're blackballed. That's it, they're out. I've watched people get commissioned for series. The first one doesn't do well, so they don't want the other 2. I've seen people come into this industry with so many dreams and it kind of not happen, that I just think still being here, and I think we forget that, because we're all jealous. we're all jealous and petty.
Well, you are, and you always, and I think with publishing, I'm sure it's not even just publishing, any industry. They'll always, you know, hold the shiny new thing in front of you and put a spot, not even just hold it, put a great big massive spotlight
in your face.
Yeah, in your face, and then amplify it on a giant stadium screen. Like, so you can't, I'm very dramatic today, but you can't miss it. Like,
and then
publishers very
the door in case you didn't get it. You know,
yeah,
like
in case you didn't get it. And
are you
no
aware
matter,
I was more successful than you? Here it is.
but it doesn't matter how confident you may feel, and you look at your backlist, and you're like, you're happy with your backlist, but then you'll see that big shiny thing. You're just like, oh my god, like, is there any point? But then it goes two ways.
All the time.
But it goes two ways. Either they continue to fly, or there's some, and I probably think similar to you, probably came out the same year as me, and I don't know where they've gone.
Exactly. And I think it's so easy. And at the end of the day, whether they fly, whether they end up buying, you know, a Beverly Hills mansion, or whether they are not buying the Uber Eats, you know, at the end of the day, in the nicest way, it doesn't affect you. You know, it doesn't affect us. It's not relevant to what we're doing. And I think one of the things I have learned is, in the good way, to stay in my lane, because at the end of the day, it's so easy to look up. And what's brilliant is when you meet like the big name authors, and I won't name her, but I was talking to a really big name children's author, like who's massive, like massive queen of children's literature, and we were talking about this, and I said, oh, you know, I'm sort of, you know, struggling a bit with the Green Eye Monster at the moment. She said, oh, me too, I can't believe that is doing so well.
You're like, even you.
Like, so whoever you are, there's always going to be somebody who is either or to be doing better than you are. And it's, you know, comparison is the thief of joy, isn't it? And when I stop doing that, and sometimes, and I have to curate that quite carefully sometimes, when, you know, my mental or cerebral health is not great, which when we're exhausted, when we're on deadline like this, it isn't always. I have to curate that quite carefully and not look at the socials, you know, be aware that I am not in the best frame of mind to be ingesting other people's success. So I do quite consciously shut off sometimes and go, I'm not in a place of grace right now, so I need to just step away from it and just concentrate on what I'm doing.
This is why I think it is important. You should allow yourself to have that one moment, 10 minutes of pettiness, just like to indulge in it, you know. So, you know, acknowledge how you feel, be petty, and then sit with it, and then let it go and move on.
Totally. And it is, and I think, you know, another big thing about this industry is how you look after your mental health. And I don't even mean, you know, mental health with capital M, capital H, but generally just in the way that physical exercise is really important for me, because I spend a lot of time with my bum on this chair, and I have a back, and when I don't work out, it physically hurts me, because it's no good for anyone being this static. And there's no way around it, is it? If you're writing a book, you are static for hours on end, whether you sit, stand, whatever you do. You can't move and write a book. So I really prioritize, you know, I'm a big runner, and I like the gym. I just did a Joe Wicks this morning, so everything from my navel downwards is on fire. There's a reason.
My walk. That's all I managed. I got up, I was out.
But you got to do, and it is good for the head. I do find it very, very good for the head. But also something I've become more mindful of in recent years as well is taking the same care with my brain, because that if the brain isn't working, the rest of it can't happen. What we do is so cerebrally demanding. They have to look after that headspace. And, you know, I don't know how you are, but it's very difficult. I'm having a bit of a week this week. It's really difficult to shut all of that stuff out, you know, when you've got to sit and write. So you've got to be, you know, I was having quite a difficult day yesterday. So I thought, you know, I'm not going to sit here. I'm going to go to a cafe where there are other humans, some other noise to put it in my head, so that these thoughts that I'm ruminating over can just go away. So, and I really think the curation of your mental health in this job is really important, both in terms of just making sure your brain keeps working, so sleep and water and food and exercise and all of those things. But when you get those negative imposter syndrome, you know, everyone's doing better than I am thoughts, you do have to sit with them for a minute. You have to listen to them, and then you have to put, whether you need to do it or get someone you trust around you to do it, put the truth in front of you that goes, you know. And I quite often do the thing where I go, what would Maz 10 years ago make of where you are now? You know, and not because I've been a wild success story, I wish, but I am doing the thing that I always said I wanted to do, you know, and it's so easy to forget that, because, you know, of course we all want, you know, the mega success story, but actually just doing it is a success story. The fact that you've had a book published is a success story. If you've had multiple, you know, books published, it's a multiple success story. And just going, you know, and I think, what would Maz 10 years ago do? And the answer comes back very quickly: she'd punch you in your ungrateful face. So stop whining. Stop whining, Maz, now, and listen to Maz 10 years ago, who would do anything to be sitting down all day making up stories, and, you know, crack on.
I'm going to ask you about your new book. that will teach
Oh
you.
yes, we'll talk about that.
I know. I'm like, you know what? We need to talk about a book. But I was just wanting to say, like, you know, you're talking about your body and looking after your body, because I'm always asked, how can you get up so early in the morning and like walk? And I said, I'm very much aware. When I was practicing law, I was constantly on my feet.
Yeah.
I was always on. If I'd had my Apple, I probably did it towards the end, but if I'd had my Apple Watch on continuously, I'd do more than that. Because I'm walking from office to court, around the court building. Like, I was constantly on my feet. This job I do now, it is so stationary. And even when I'm teaching, so next week I'm teaching a course, but I'm teaching it online. So I'm still sitting down. The week after, 2 weeks after that, I'm teaching again, but I think I'll be doing it in person. But the point is, it's so stationary. So I'm great, and I have scoliosis. I have all sorts of stuff going on. So I need to be after I've got a deadline. After I've delivered the book, the first thing I do is I book an appointment with my chiropractor. And Dr. Charlotta, who's the best, takes one look at me and she's like, deadline. I'm like, yeah. Because my back, I'm just going to swear, like, my back's completely fucked. It's like, it's locked from the last time when I delivered the book in November. I was locked from my neck down to my calf. It was just one lock. So not only did I have to see the chiropractor, I then had to go and do in the next room. It's not even, it wasn't a massage, Matt. It wasn't a massage. It wasn't. I didn't come out there feeling all nice and sweet and like covered in oils. It's an attack. Yeah, it was an attack because it's sport therapy. That's what it is when you've done a marathon. Oh my! But I needed it because, oh my God,
it's solid.
I always say to her, like the masseuse, I'm like, you don't leave me. I don't walk out of your office feeling nice. I just don't. I'm not on air. Like, there's no candles, there's no warm oil.
No patchouli here. It's just pain. It's just terrible. It's like writer's back is like the absolute, but there's no way around it. You can't move and write a book, like I say. So you absolutely got.
Which is why what you say, it's so important. You need to, suppose, looking after like your brain health. You have to look after your body. You have to prioritize those things.
Totally. Otherwise, if it's not working, you can't work. And
no, it's true.
I'm sort of sailing the joyful waves of the perimenopause at the moment, and it's just made me so mindful of my physical health and my ability to do anything, but my ability to do my job. I have to be faintly sensible about what I do with my body. I'm not always sensible, Nadine. I'm not going to lie.
No, we're not always sensible, but when we are, and it sometimes means like, God, I know we're going off on one, but okay, do I have to spend money buying the right chair? Yes, I do. I have to spend the money, and I didn't want to. Even when I bought this chair, luckily, I always play the Grand National. I'm very lucky. I'll admit I'm very lucky with the Grand National, and I won on the Grand National. And I was like, what do I do with the money? Because I won quite big. I did very well, and I should have put more on, but I'm a bit of a chicken, but I didn't. So my was like, what do you need? I said, I need a chair. He's like, because we're talking about chairs because he works from home. He's like, but why don't you just use your Grand National money? I was like, that is what. So this chair is my Grand National money, but sometimes it is. But sometimes it's about, it's like you have to spend. You need to be healthy. Where am I spending all my time on this chair?
Exactly. Well, do we think that Rafa Nadal goes and buys his tennis racket down Sports Direct? Probably not. Probably phones up, doesn't he?
Decathlon at least.
When I signed a book deal, I got this. Now this is my joy. Now this won't work very well if you're listening to the podcast. If you can see it, this will work better. I got my sit-stand desk. So this, which I'm not going to do. Look, my desk goes up and down at the touch of a button.
Oh, hello.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I love it. Mainly because you just get to hit the button and play with it all day. So that was mine. And the same thing, and it was a few hundred quid. I thought, that's extravagant. And I thought, you work on an upcycled table you got off Facebook Marketplace for 40 quid. Treat yourself, love. You're worth it. And like I say, it's where I most of the time, every day. And I do think that's just that looking after your body, looking after your mind is not, there's this sort of self-care is not self-indulgence, and self-indulgence is not self. It's trying to hit that sweet point where it is actually self-care. Me sitting and eating 4 packs of Fox's chocolate biscuits that I will try and file a self-care. No, Maz, that's self-indulgence. So, but investing in a good chair for your back, or is it? That is looking after the machine.
My favourite thing to remind myself, which I heard someone say heard it on Oprah years ago. She said, it's not, Oprah didn't say it, her guest said it. She goes, it's not selfish, it's self-full. And I think sometimes that's and it's good. And I'm like, yeah, it's self-full. I'm not being selfish by saying I need this or I need to do that for myself. It's being self-full. So you are taking care.
I think it's one of those things that comes a little bit with a few more miles on the clock, because middle age is a tricky time for a woman particularly, but one of the things that it really brings with it is the ability to say no or yes to the right things, and not really angst about them anymore. So if I can't do something now, I don't feel the need to explain why I can't do it. So I would have sent a long angsty email 10 years ago saying, I'm really sorry, like one of my kids got a sports day and my back's playing up and I've got terrible hemorrhoid and blah, 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 blah. I don't feel the need to explain all of those things anymore. It's just kind of to everyone's mentioning.
Well, it's a bit much to have to explain your hemorrhoids, perhaps, Maz.
Just to be clear, I a professional occasion because of a hemorrhoid. I just want that to be very clear from the public record. But now I'm far more confident to just go, no, I can't do that. And do you know what tends to happen, Nadine? Strangely, the sky does not fall down when I say I can't do something at the time that suits somebody else. What tends to happen 98% of the time is they find another time that suits me better.
No,
it's not I turned myself into as a younger person to bend around what everyone else needed. And you don't actually need to do it anymore. You could just say, I can't do that and accept you're not going to do a gig. Or what's more likely is someone will go, right, well, can you do that instead? And you go, yes, that's great.
It's such a small thing. And, that word no. And we build it up to be such a big thing in our heads. Like, that's how, and it only, even when I went freelance, so I became self-employed like 2013. And people, firms say, oh, are you able to do such and such case? And like, I don't want to do it. Because it's out of for whatever reason, I don't want to do it. But I feel like if I said no, I had to qualify the no.
Totally.
And it took me about a year of doing that before I was like, no. Are you available? I was like, no, I'm not. And they'll be like, fine. And I didn't lose work because you're always scared about losing work. They went, okay, if you can't do this, can you do this other case for us on this day? Well, yeah, I can do that.
Exactly that. And I don't know, we have this terrible fear, and I do think it is more of a female thing than a male thing, of just saying no to anything. And the importance of all my relationships are better in my professional and personal life for saying no. So, I've got a particularly crazy year this year with deadlines and things due. So I've had to say to all of my publishers, when they, because what publishers are like, we love them, but they'll be, can you just? Always, can you just?
Yeah.
I'm not much better at saying, no, I can't. This is not, you're not on the, you're not on the call sheet this week. I'm doing this. I'm going to have to be doing this. I will do your thing when your thing comes up, but no. And it's so, but nobody seems to like me less. I'm not saying they like me.
No, they won't. No, I know what you mean, but
goes, you arsehole, you arsehole for not making a 2-minute video exactly when I said, it's not a problem. And I think, and I find myself, I'm at that age now where I'm that annoying older woman. But when I meet younger women, I did a school event last week. I was with this gorgeous librarian who kept saying sorry for things that weren't her fault. So I was like, can I have a glass of water? She was like, sorry, I should have got you one. It's like, no, because you don't have the gift of prophecy. So I was going to ask for one, so it's fine. And then I'm sorry, it's in such a small glass. I'm like, it's still water though, isn't it? Which was the main.
That's what you want. Water. You got your water.
Item was the water. And I said to her at the end, I said, you are so glorious. I said, but please, can I save you 20 years? Stop saying sorry for things that are your fault. So what did she say?
Yeah. Sorry.
But it is kind of, we sort of apologize and over explain. And I have found that everything in my professional life works better when I say, no, I can't. Again, you asked about that first deadline, those early deadlines. I remember, I shan't name the publisher, but they landed edits on me on Christmas Eve and wanted them back on the 2nd of January. And
no.
Right now, it's a hard no, and there is no hemorrhoidal explanation required. Like, just hell no. No. But then I was like, a little panting puppy wanting to please. So it totaled my Christmas. So literally there, my kids are playing with the toys on Boxing Day. I'm like, yeah, that's great. It makes a noise. Brilliant. Shut up. Mummy's writing. Because I had to cancel our plans with friends. I had to leave the family big party that we had to go and sit and work somewhere because I had to do it. And I'm like, what? Who was working on the second?
One.
No, no one was working. Like there was no need for it. So, and I totaled my Christmas. And then I do that thing, and you know this can happen as a writer a lot, where you're not doing your book very well and you're not doing your humaning very well. So at that point, bad mother, I'm being a bad partner, I'm being a bad daughter, I'm being a bad sister, I'm being a bad friend, and I'm also being a bad author because I'm resenting the book for taking me away from all that, and I'm resenting them for taking away from the book, and no one's happy. Like nobody's happy. But now I would absolutely say I'm not going to do that because I'm taking the week off to spend Christmas with my family. Absolutely, I will pick this up on the whatever of January when I'm back at work. Yeah. You know, and it works.
It's crazy. Right, I am going to ask you about your book, but it was just one thing. We were talking about the gender thing and men, and I don't know where I heard this study, but it's like men will just say they can do anything, whereas women will be like, oh no, I'm not sure. And they basically said, ask a woman, can you fly this plane? No, listen, no, I cannot fly a plane. Ask a man, yeah, I reckon I could do it.
Okay.
that's all have a go. And they said that's the difference. So you're like, we need to be more. Yeah, just give it a go.
Have you ever seen a seminal work on this that is the best example of it, which is the oeuvre of Peppa Pig, which is one of the best programs ever created. I love Peppa Pig. It is the best. But they have this, it is brilliantly satirical, as the best children's programs are. They are brilliantly observant. Adult life. And they have this with Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig. And Daddy Pig always says, I'm a bit of an expert in that. The father of my children is exactly that guy. He's always he'll watch 5 minutes of like the luge at the Winter Olympics and go, oh yeah,
I can do that.
Down and where's your wind resistance, Bob? It's like you don't know what you're talking about. It's like absolute rubbish. Like quantum mechanics. What? I
can do that.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, Maz, would you like to tell the listeners of the conversation about that old teacher?
Oh,
I'm holding it up because you never know. I might show a clip.
I've just got my first.
Oh, you got the. Oh, I've got the proof. Let me see the final copy. Oh, so pretty. It doesn't get old, does it, when you get your book in your hand?
This is number 17, and it is. I'm frankly probably more interested than I was in my babies because, frankly, by the time I gave birth, I was over it. But
you're over that.
I was just like, oh yes, another one. Right. Okay. Right. So this is my second comedy crime novel, and it is set in a rural primary school in the fictitious town of Flatford, which is absolutely in no way based on the Dorset rural town that I grew up in. And it centers on the murder of the reviled head teacher, Miss Claudia Stitchwell, who drops dead at an event at the school. And initially, everybody thinks that she has a terrible nut allergy and that somebody has, which is completely forbidden in schools, has brought nuts into a cake, and they think that's what happened. But a group of parents get a little bit suspicious that there is something else at play. And the detective force in this book, rather than the police or anyone who knows what we're talking about, is the Year 6 parents WhatsApp group. So the Year 6 parents WhatsApp group decide that they are going to solve this crime. So the book is told through a combination of WhatsApp groups, of media reports, of reports from the police, of the school newsletters, but it is mainly told from the point of view of the 4 main suspects. So we know only 4 people can have done something that killed this woman. And they're the school bursar, the school cook, the acting head teacher, and the school TA, all of whom had myriad motives to kill this woman. But it's also, having raised 4 children, it is my little homage to the absolute batshittery that is the parents' WhatsApp group. It is where, like all WhatsApp groups, I don't think parents' WhatsApp groups kind of have the monopoly on this. It's where sense and reason go to die. People get up about the slightest thing. And what I find fascinating about the parents' WhatsApp groups is that I kind of, obviously we all know social media is a very hostile place, and I hate that. I want to quit social media about 3 times daily. And I don't understand it. I will never understand humans' unkindness or lack of empathy or listening to one another. I will never get it. But there is at least some logic in like saying something horrible to someone you'll never have to see and deal with the ramifications. You know, there's at least it's not a nice thing to do, it's not a kind thing to do, but there's some sort of safety in being at distance. What I don't understand about parents' WhatsApp groups is you're going to see these mofos every day at the school gates for anything up to 7 years. So it all kicks off about whatever, and then you're all going to see, you want to stand there at kind of the Christmas Carol concert, go, "You're right, Ted."
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's great. Interesting to hear your views on anti-vaxxing, Ted. You know, would you like a celebration?
But it's like they're like the next door app group. It's so passive aggressive in there.
Oh, yeah.
And the next door app is the most passive aggressive thing I've ever seen in my life. And I'm gonna call her Barbara. I went on there one day and bloody Barbara's complaining about squirrels. I'm like, there's nothing you can do about the squirrels. They're just squirrels. And I'm like, I'm not spending my Sunday. I'm just not doing it.
I hope this will be published far enough away from it. I was in pieces on Sunday with one of my kids' WhatsApp groups where I actually it's quite relevant to the book. Two of the kids are doing a charity sale. They have charity weeks at this child's school. And two of the kids taking it upon themselves to do a cake sale to raise money for young carers, which is like lovely cause, brilliant, very close to I was one and my books are about them. So like, good on you kids. What a nice thing to do off your own back. But they've said that because they have some very serious allergies at the school, they can only have like shop-bought, pre-prepared things. They can't have homemade cakes. And this was explained that kind of, you know, they have some severe airborne allergies at the school. So therefore, you know, you can't be too careful. And I have to say, awful. This is a cause quite close to my heart because when I was at school, we lost a student at the school due to a nut allergy for an anaphylactic reaction. So I absolutely can't be careful enough about this stuff. But the parents on my WhatsApp group, I mean, you would think apoplectic with rage about the fact that they can't make the, you know, carrot cupcakes and that this was some repression of human rights that you know, let's call him Fabian, their boy, wouldn't be able to make his signature, you know, butterfly icing cakes. And it was, do you know what it was, Nadine? It's the government. That's the problem. That's where this comes from. This nanny state. Everybody, so you've got an airborne anaphylactic-inducing shock. Stop being such a snowflake about it and let me bring in my coffee and walnut cake.
Did you get there in my day? There was no...
Absolutely. And it got to the point where one woman's going, do you know what? I'm going to move to outer space because I think there's the only place that he says. I'm like, no one's stopping you from making
You just need to go to Sainsbury's and buy some cakes.
Pop down, Aldi, pick up a cherry bakewell, go home and bake a revenge coffee and walnut cake. Knock yourself out, make an almond sponge, make some marzipan, fill your house with airborne allergens, you know, because you can, you lucky duck, because you're not going to die. But this one woman started it, and I thought everyone's just going to quietly go, all right, Barbara.
No.
I mean, oh no, 4 or 5.
Everyone jumps on board.
And it's just, so with That'll Teacher, it is kind of my homage to that dynamic on the WhatsApp group that can easily wind itself up, but also kind of the good sides of it, because they can engender lovely community. And when something goes wrong, you know, those groups can really come together and help. But they can also cause untold, you know, damage with, you know, we touched on the traitors earlier, but that groupthink kind of, and about that. And now I think about it and and get people and things in a lot of trouble.
Can we talk about traitors though for a little bit before I go into your last final questions, right? Yeah. But traitors is nuts. It's the whole, it's when they start giving their explanation as to why we call her Barbara. Barbara must be a traitor. Well, she just breathed funny. Breathed.
Do you see the way she ate her shreddies?
Breathed. I know. Highly suspicious.
Well, they'll go. So usually it comes up like a couple of people, doesn't it? So it's Barbara and Ted, right? So Barbara ate her shreddies funny, and Ted's got some strange views about anti-vaxxers, you know, whatever it is. So they'll go in on them, and Ted doesn't want to put his novel in 3 parts. So obviously he's a traitor. So Barbara doesn't like squirrels, and she wants to bake coffee and walnut, and she thinks her shreddies funny. Ted will not listen to some common sense publishing advice and doesn't agree with immunisation and thinks we're all being monitored, you know, through 5G. So it's Ted. It's Ted's the traitor.
It's got to be Ted.
Right? So Ted then is no, I'm 100% faithful. So what actually the next night, they don't go back and go, oh, hang on, Barbara, you still don't like squirrels. You did eat your shreddies funny. You did it again this morning, Barbara. I was watching. The herd moves on to something completely different. And the number of times they miss the person who was the silver choice.
What was her name? Was it Mina?
Mina.
She was epic. Because when that girl cried, I was like, you need to give her an award. Because she was there bawling her eyes out saying it's not me. And I was just like...
She was sensational. She was like, she deserved to win the whole thing. I think she should have won. That we all wanted to win because she was flawless, wasn't she? She was absolutely flawless. And then along comes little faux Welsh Charlotte.
Irritated me.
She was a sneaker, wasn't she? But fair play to her. She played that and absolutely.
The traitors did a very, very good. They did a good job. But me and I was like, no, give that girl an award, give her the money because
she was amazing and ruthless and brilliant. But I just love that as a group psychology thing. And I guess they must have little contact with the outside world whilst they're doing it. So when you're in those very intense, pressure cooker situations, I'm sure we would all go 17 shades of batshit. But it's so fascinating to see how certain personalities in the group can turn everyone to their way of thinking, with, like you say, you're the barrister, Nadine, absolutely no evidence whatsoever at all.
This is what baffles me. I mean, this baffles me in general about people. I'm like, you've got nothing. You are literally saying because they blinked when you came into the room, and that is your evidence. You've got nothing to back up as to why you think they're a traitor, but they'll run with it. And I know we're going off on traitors, but there was one episode, I can't remember what his name was now, the black guy, I don't know if it was Leo, I can't remember, Leon, I think it was Leon, and he went,
the young guy.
Yeah, so he
had, I think it was Leon.
They buried him, right? They buried him, and he came out, and he was a little bit kept to himself, a little bit quiet, not the same. And the one who won, the blonde girl, I can't remember her name now, but she was like, we're friends, and you're not yourself. You're just being different. So I'm now thinking you're a traitor. And he literally said, it was like, you start to think differently when you've been buried alive. I'm like, I would like to think you would be. I would like to think that would change your perspective on everything if you've spent like a good hour in a coffin. I was just like, why can't you see the sense in what he's saying?
Not a chatty Cathy when you come out. I'd go as far as quietly quite traumatic. That actually might need a minute to process. Might need a minute to get around living in a small box.
I'm sitting there drinking. Was I drinking? I was dry January. I probably wasn't drinking. I probably wanted to drink after that. I'm like, the man's been buried alive. Give him a little bit of grace.
Hey, Barbara, come on, back up the bus, woman. This is not okay.
Right, I'm going to do your questions. And I always think I know the answer, but you could surprise me. Are you an introvert or extrovert, or a hybrid of the two?
Well, my daughters came up with this great phrase, an omnivert, which I think is right. So I am 50% of both, actually. I present to who has spent upwards of 30 seconds in my company as an extrovert. But when I've had a period of high octane sort of exothermic social interaction, I absolutely need to come and sit in the shed and be on my own for a bit. And I need to recharge. Again, I'm realizing that as I get older, that because particularly in the children's space, I have to do a lot of quite high energy performance stuff. So World Book Week is coming up. I will be a broken woman at the end of World Book Week because it's 5 days of 8 hours in a school going, I will just need to come home and not speak to another human being. But it'll be Uber Eats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I think I'm an omnivert. I think you have to be an introvert, don't you, to write books? You have to sit quietly on your own with your own thoughts for a lot of time. So yeah, I'd say I'm both.
Okay.
Very few other people.
What? And I now qualify this by saying it can be a good or bad experience, but what challenge or experience in your life shaped you the most?
I think funny that early rejection of Who Let the Gods Out, certainly professionally, because it taught me a really important lesson about the difference between self-delusion and self-belief. And we've sort of touched on this with with working with aspirant authors, where the line can be very, very thin indeed. Yeah. It was with there have only been 2 books I've really believed in, which are Who Let the Gods Out and Over My Dead Body, and they have been my 2 most successful books. And both times they were both nearly rejected out of hand, but both times I believed in them and I pushed it to get them out there because I really thought they were good. But other things are just delusions. I've had other that are unmitigated crap, and I'm sort of learning the difference between the two. That kind of, just because I want something to be good doesn't actually mean that it is. And so I think having that rejection and going away, well, I can't do this, and then going, no, I really do believe in this thing. Actually, there are changes I need to make. I need to listen to the feedback I've had, and and as we discussed, I made those changes, and then the second time it went out, it got taken up. So I think that sort of experience of using rejection wisely was very, very helpful.
Okay, so if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, God. Look at yourself naked a lot. Take pictures.
Yeah.
Celebrate your body, my dear, because you don't get to keep it. But that said, I don't know about you. We've discussed, Nadine, we're of an age. I wouldn't go back there for all the tea in China.
You couldn't pay me to go back to my 20s.
Pay me gold to be 25 years old again. I would just say to her, hold tight, love. It all comes. It comes out in the wash. Like, don't be in such a rush. It does come. You do get everything that you want. Enjoy, smell the roses for a bit. You're going to be knocked up in 2 years' time. So really, that's it. You're in a captive breeding program, babe, for most of your 30s. Get out there and drink all the sambuca and a lot of like mayonnaise and all the stuff you're not going to be able to eat for much of the next 15 years. Hold tight, Maz. It's on its way. It's on the horizon for you.
Okay, this is my new one. What is your non-writing tip for writers?
Non-writing tip for
non-writing.
Writers. Well, okay, so we've covered off exercise and we've covered off mental health stuff. I think surrounding yourself with nourishing people in this business is really important. So find the people who make you feel good, who are straight with you and, good to you. But I think nourishing people are really, really important because, not to do publishing down again. Because,
not that we haven't done that.
No, we haven't done that already. There are some difficult personalities, or people you don't get on with, or just some quite toxic people. And I think it can be quite tempting, weirdly, again, we do it being a 14-year-old, to court those people and want to be in their circle or in their orbit or have them blow up your pockets. And I just thought, why? Like, why? You've not either been very nice to me, you're not very nice to people at large. Why am I bothering? So why not, be with these lovely people who are incredibly supportive? And so I think choose the people you put around yourself quite carefully and make sure that they nourish you and they support you and they make you feel good. Because friendship in this business is quite weird, isn't it? Because we feel quite competitive, or like everyone's competing for £110, which isn't the case at all. But it's a messy business, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes I think it can feel both competitive and transactional.
Yes.
As well.
Yeah.
Which is why it is. So I have my we call ourselves the squad. Like, I love the squad, because the squad is where we can indulge in our pettiness, talk about whatever's happened with our editors, or it's our safe space. So that's our friend group, and it's so important to have that because they understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing, because it is one of those experiences that is so weird. There's nothing like being an author, that only really other people who've done it can fully understand it. But it can also, you get those people who humble brag in front of you all the time. Those author friends who are like, oh wow, like you've only been nominated for so and so once. Like, oh God. Like when my book died on submission, I swear to God, a really good author friend of mine, I don't think she meant it maliciously. She went, it looked like Over My Dead Body wasn't going to go. And I was so disappointed because I really loved that book and I really believed in it. And she went, oh my God, she said, dying on submission. She said, in fact, not having a book go to auction, she said, I can't imagine how that would feel. I was like, oh, can't you, Barbara? All right, love. Good. Happy for you. Happy for you.
Well done,
so you can get that energy, can't you? That's kind of a bit like, oh, you've sold this. Oh, I just sold this. And it's like, I don't care. I don't need to hear it. Thank you very much. So I think, surround yourself with the good people who will nourish you and help with all those other healths that I think are important to do well here. Okay.
And finally, where can listeners of the conversation find you online?
Oh, all over the place. Not that I'm an egotist at all, but my website is www.maz.world.
No, not even .com.
I'm not an org. I'm not a com. Not even a country. Not even UK.
Just world.
World, the whole world. And then I'm on everything as at Maz Evans author. So all the things. I'm pretty rubbish at social media. So you're more likely to hear about. I'm having massive problems with the boiler at the moment. You're going to get lot of boiler talk on the socials. But in amongst it, hopefully there's stuff about where I'm going to be and what I'm doing. So yes, at Maz Evans author on all the things.
Well, that just leaves me to say, Maz Evans, thank you. I'm laughing because it's been such a great conversation. So thank you.
I've sort of forgot this is a work thing, to be honest.
I know. I was going to say thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Oh, well, thank you also for having me, but thank you for hosting these conversations, because it's a massive investment of your time to do this with everybody, and they are so valuable. I really enjoy them, and I know so many people do. So thank you for giving up your time to create this opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody. No, thank you sincerely. Have an Uber Eats on me, Peach.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.